Go. Okay, so hey everybody, my name is Kelsey. I am Professor Kelsey Coes here with Divination Academy. Today we are going to be talking about Lilith in the Dark Goddess Devotional classes that I have been doing here. First, we're going to start with a little bit of housekeeping that we always have to do. So this is with Divination Academy, which is an amazing pagan school and community. And we believe that all education and all resources should be free and accessible to all. So definitely check us out if this is the first time you're seeing us. We have so many classes on so many different topics. The number one way to get in touch with us is going to be our Facebook, which I just put into the chat. If you send us a message there, you can enroll as a student and you'll have access to our community and so many other things. You can also check out our website, which I will throw in the chat as well. That has so many resources. That has professor pages, it has study guides, it has resources for book lists, it has resources for bibliographies, it has so many things on there. And when you enroll as a student, that's where your student page will be. Lots of fun stuff on there. And then where all of our classes that get recorded end up is going to be on our YouTube page, which I'll pop in the chat as well. The YouTube page, I think, has over 100 videos right now for classes. And I know Alex told me that most of mine will get posted by the end of sometime this week. So I'm pretty sure she'll announce it, and then I will too. Otherwise, just keep an eye out because they should be coming up here soon. So I think that's it for the Divination Academy. Other things that I do for housekeeping is I always introduce myself a little bit. So I am a solitary practitioner. I have been for my entire practice. I've been practicing roughly for about 15 plus years. I've been looking at a lot of different religions while doing that. I pull from a lot of different places. I've studied underneath a lot of different masters when it comes to shamanism, spirituality, pagan religions, witchcraft, magic, things like that. Most of my magic is very ceremonial, energetic based, moon based. It's very nature based, very folk based. My energy is also very cleansing, very healing, very purifying. I was told I should give a warning that it is going to be a little overwhelming and intense if you haven't experienced it before. I have attempted to pull it back a little bit, but sometimes it's just what happens. So just if you do get overwhelmed, just take a drink of water, reground yourself, things like that. But it's in a great way that you will get overwhelmed. And then my other disclaimer is since we are doing dark goddesses, um, I always want to make sure I have this disclaimer beginning in my classes. We come to the dark goddesses with absolute complete reverence and respect. We are not coming to them as if they are quote unquote evil or bad. We are coming to them as if they are amazing deities and entities for us to encompass, to use, and to harness. We are coming at this from a place of balance and duality, and we are coming at this as, like I said, a complete place of reverence. The dark goddesses can do absolutely amazing things for you. Dark doesn't mean bad. Dark just simply means the absence of light. It's just a different form of energy, and that is how I teach this, and that is how we approach them. Another thing is with class today, since we are doing Lilith, sex magic will be talked about, demons will be talked about because she is the mother of demons. If those are topics that are too taboo for you or you don't want to discuss, I'm not going to be offended, but they will be brought up in class because it's part of who she is, and I'm going to authentically represent her and everything that she encompasses and all practices that she's about. So if that is something that you can't, that like I said, offends you or is not part of your path, or you feel like it's just too much for your handle, that's fine. I'm not going to get offended, but that will be talked about in class today because it's a part of who she is. So with that being said, because she has been with me all day and really in my face, um, I actually am going to invoke a circle first before I start doing lecture. Normally I don't, but I'm actually going to do a small one here first because she has been so strong today, and I have a feeling you guys are already feeling her pulling on you. So I'm going to give everybody a minute to kind of ground themselves and get into your sacred space, your energetic container, your meditative state, whatever you call it. Everybody has their own phrase for it, but you hear me say energetic container and you haven't been with me before, that's what I mean. So I will give you a minute to get into that. And then, like I said, I'm just going to call a small circle just so I know that you guys are in that energetic container and within us and protected, because her energy has been very overwhelming today. At this dark hour and time of fall, as summer begins to fade, and we are greeted with earlier evenings with anticipation, we seek and gather for the wisdom of our elders, the ancients, and the guides, the ancestors, and humbly in our presence, we seek the knowledge we are ready to integrate, for now is the time. We are promised no tomorrows. This is the hour of magic, and now is the moment of possibility. Gatekeepers of the four directions, thank you for turning your gaze towards us this afternoon. We honor your sacred presence and thank you for the blessings and the knowledge and the wisdom and the divine connection that you are going to welcome to us here. I call to the direction of east, the element of air, the ones who breathe new life into being. Air lifts us up beyond our fear to a place of grounded understanding, and to others without hesitation, a place where we can meet each other and we are in love. Help us breathe deeply, and on the exhale, we release any resistance to this moment, and we are here, and together we create a new beginning. I call the direction of the south, fire that burns within us and reminds us that our passion lies our deepest power. Help us burn down the ashes that anything has left behind in our lives from the harvest that does not belong with us. Please, I call to you, dear Lilith, please be present in this container that I have created for you. I call to you, Mother Demons, the Screeching Queen Owl, the Vampire Lady, the first wife of Adam. I call to you to be here to ignite any fire, any passion, any rebirth, and any renewal that any within this circle need. I call to the guardians below and above, and I call to all ascended masters to be here with us. Amen. Aho. So it is. Okay. So first off, I just want to ask, you can put in the chat or you can unmute yourself. What does everybody already know about Lilith? I feel like when it comes to dark goddesses, she's one of the top three most people think of right away, but so little people know about her. So I just want to hear kind of what you guys already know about her before I dive into her very extensive history and everything there is about her.
I didn't know somebody else was getting ready to go, but I heard, I don't know, that her and Adam, they were originally created together and they were faced back to back. And then I heard a story about, I'm trying to get my little one out of here, that he wanted to be on top of her sexually, and or no, she did, and he said, no, you're beneath me, and she left, and God told her, I'll fix the situation, go back. And she was like, no, I'm not going back. And God was like, no, I'm gonna fix it. And she was like, no, I'm not going back to him. So that's kind of the story I got.
I think that's the most common. You have more details than most do. There's also three versions of that one story. So I think it's interesting that those are the details you know. So I'm excited to share with you the rest of that.
I got a quick question, or maybe I
Yes.
should say my question. From the little that I know of the stories that I just mentioned, was she the first person or first woman to say no to domestic violence or abuse? Because
That
I felt like she was being abused and she recognized that and said, no, I will not be abused. I don't care who say go back. I ain't taking nobody's shit.
yes, that is yes,
Oh,
she
can
is
I say bad
actually.
words? I'm sorry.
No, you're fine with that. She can be a patron deity for that. I've known a lot of people that use patron deity for domestic violence and for like overcoming domestic violence. That definitely is something that I've definitely heard and I've definitely used her as, and that is a perspective that I have seen her story interpreted as well.
Okay, thank you.
You are super welcome. Isn't she a Sumerian goddess who's actually a cluster? Yes, we will touch on that. She is a Sumerian goddess. She goes back, actually, the first time that you ever see her is in Gilgamesh. So then we'll go over that. Yes, I know that she was the first wife of Adam. Yep, that is definitely one of the theories. There's also three different theories as to why she left Adam in the first place. There's punishment that she was given for doing so, which actually originates to why there's this theory, this story and this legend of her eating babies and being a baby killer. She actually does it in retaliation because they kill all of her children first. So there's actually a lot that we'll go over with her when it comes to Adam and God, and he's not very kind to her.
Oh my God, I
Um,
never knew that. You said they killed her babies first?
yep, 100 a day because she wouldn't go back.
Oh my God. So they just made it seem like she was just evil and disobedient. But was she? Oh my God. Okay, let me go get my pen and paper. Okay, okay, okay.
I have no prior knowledge. That's totally fine if you know prior knowledge. That's totally fine. Totally fine. Read then that she was described like a demon. Yep, she was described as a demon who ate babies. Like I said, I'll touch on that. She actually does. I'm not gonna like in one version of the story, she actually does. Like I said, it's in retaliation, and she claims that that's what she is made and designed to do because of the retaliation and because of the title and because of the punishment that God put on her. So that's a whole thing that we'll talk about. Um, she was known as Mother of Demons. That is why I said that is super important. If you cannot be respectful to demons as an entity and a species, she's not going to take that. You cannot disrespect her children. Her children mean so much to her. So you need to be very respectful with her children, and those are the demons are her children. No offense, that's the story of Christianity and women. Yeah, they vilify before. Yes, they do. Yes. Yes, same heard. Okay. Honey, you can go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt. I know a little bit about everything that was said about Mesopotamian, I believe. That she was the first wife of Adam who refused to lay underneath him, and the story version I heard was that God kicked her out because of that, and that, well, I guess the only thing I can bring that hasn't been said is that two of her favorite animals are dragons and unicorns. Which I just find very cool that she's like both ends of the spectrum.
There's actually a whole story with her and a dragon in Samael.
Cool.
It's very interesting. That's why she loves them. She's also loves owls, but that's comes more from like a Judaism standpoint, but owls are super associated with her too.
Hi,
Okay.
everybody. My turn. So I heard that she was been mentioned in the Talmud. Um, okay, cool. I got the nod. Awesome. And definitely the Old Testament, and I don't even know if she's in the New. But anyway, one of the stories that I heard was that a way for her to take revenge was she would go to the homes of sleeping men and, awake them by a surprise, and then have children that way. Lots of bad stories, but you could understand as a woman her pain and her struggle and her need for to seek back or take back her power.
Yes, all of those are part of it too. You did touch on pieces as well. I'm so happy. You guys know so much more than I was anticipated, and I'm so excited. Okay, anything else anybody wants to add before we jump in?
Yeah, one little piece. I heard that she was the snake in the garden that tempted Eve, because who could tempt a woman better than a woman?
That is a version. Yes, there is a version where I have heard that as well. That I have it in here. We'll go over that. Yes, I think that's in the Alphabet's narrative of it, which I think that pops up. That's like the third or fourth version where they kind of rewrite her story. But yes, that is something that, yes, that is part of her story as well. That does happen. That is a version. She messes with the Garden of Eden quite a few times. Actually, quite a few times. Yes, go ahead, Jody.
So I was first sort of introduced to her, kind of, in a like a random happening sort of way. Like I had heard all of the common stories, she was the first wife of Adam, and I kind of seen it as the, first woman who kind of said no to domestic violence. And it came to me, and like, how sometimes you're just kind of watching random videos, I get bored a lot, and you're scrolling and scrolling, and then all of a sudden all of these Mother Lilith videos kind of, hey, Mother Lilith sees you suffering, and this is what you need to do. And So I kind of opened up and started to sort of follow those, because I took them as sort of, here's your sign, you know what I mean?
Divine timing.
You need to, hello, pay attention, and life infinite, like protection and protecting myself, and so those were so I've been intrigued ever since then, but I haven't ever really had sort of any kind of mentor or any kind of anything that, so I'm really excited about this to learn more, because I do feel her presence often. I'm just really not sure what to do with it or how to invoke it properly, or I speak to her often, but it's, you know what I mean? Like, it just kind of, she came to me and went, hi, I'm here, and I'm gonna help you out, so pay attention. But I didn't really know how to do that. So you get research, but there's so many different stories out there with different versions of you know Adam and Eve, and her, and the mother of eating babies, and the mother of demons, and where I think people get afraid of the word demon as per se. Those are her children, and it's all part of dark goddesses, I guess. So that's kind of how I was introduced to her and Hecate per se. So I'm kind of really excited about these classes. I'm not gonna lie.
That is such a beautiful way for her to show to you, and I'm so excited for you as well. Like, that is such a beautiful way. And by the way, doing what you did, just talking to her, that's exactly how you start. So like, you did exactly what you should have done. So like, just keep trusting your gut instinct on that too. I just wanted to like give you that as well, because like, you did exactly what you should have done. Start that. So that is, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Thank you for that reassurance, because I
You
was
are
like,
welcome.
I don't know if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but here we go, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. And I mean, she kind of introduced me to like my world of crystals that really helped me sort of heal, and protection stones, and strength and self-worth. That was a really big part of my introduction to her, was finding the strength to sort of walk away and survive that, you know what I mean? And so yeah, it was really kind of, I think she's beautiful. I'm Hecate as well, and I never know if I'm saying that right, but
I've heard it pronounced two different ways, so I
yeah.
switched.
Yeah, so but they're both such amazing, powerful, strong deities, that yeah, I'm and I'm feeling pretty emotional, so I'm just gonna mute myself again here.
That's
So
fine. Go for it.
but thank you for that reassurance, because that really that's sort of an affirmation for me, because I really don't have, this is all sort of me coming into not being able to be myself, and not being able to recognize the craft, and what your part in it, and not having anybody to sort of go, okay, here's some help, right? So this is amazing, so thank you.
I'm so happy. I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing. And honestly, I don't even think I need to do an intro to what she can do for you, because you really just nailed it for me. So thank you. And I'm so happy she showed up to you that way. And I'm so happy. Okay, so like I said, Jody actually just did a brilliant intro to what she can do for you, and like my whole beginning. So I'm just gonna kind of go right into who she is now. The only thing that I would add to it that is that she is very big for sexual desire and freedom and sexual identity. That's something personally that I worked with her very well. Also womb healing, which that's my class on Thursday is womb healing. Tied that together on purpose, by the way. So that is also another thing besides that she didn't touch, is like it's also the sexual freedom, the sexual desires, the sexual identity. Without her, I never would have been able to come out of the closet as a bisexual woman. So like that is something that like, and most people that I know, they use her for sexual freedom as well. So that's another thing as well. So Lilith, she has an incredibly long history. She has been within history for 4,000 plus years. She has been wandering the earth. She's been part of mythology. She's been a part of multiple different traditions, multiple different religions. She dates back as like super far, specifically in Jewish mythology and Judaism. She's also in Sumeria and Mesopotamia. She shows up in the Tale of Gilgamesh and the Talmud. She shows up in the Bible. She shows up like she is seriously, she is in so many sacred texts. She's everywhere. On top of that, she is also into astrology for modern day. Like she is an asteroid. She is like, there are very few bodies outside of the zodiac signs that actually affect your astrological chart. She is one of them. Lilith is one of them. So she's also showing up in modern ways that way as well. And then like she's everywhere. When it comes to, like we said, domestic violence, being a patron deity for that, for sexual freedom, sexual identity. So she, like I said, she's been around for at least 4,000 years wandering the earth. We have multiple stories of her in sacred text. We have written documentation, as early as also like right alongside with the Tale of Gilgamesh. She's also like, we also even have her like pictured like in pottery. Like she's also on tablets. She's on pottery that far back. Like we don't just have her in writing. We also have her in art, across multiple different cultures. Is she also in Islam in the Quran? I think no, I don't think she's in Islam in the Quran. I might be wrong on that. I'm gonna double, triple check on that, but I don't think she pops up in Islam in the Quran. She's in the Zohar, but that is still Judaism. She's in the alphabet as well, and that's still Judaism. But I don't think she does. Honey, I'm actually gonna triple check that after class. I'm gonna triple check that, but I don't think she does. I think that's the one of the big ones that I don't think I've seen her pop up in.
You said she's in the alphabet. What does that mean?
So we'll get to that. It is another version. It's another text within like Judaism, mythology, and mysticism. It's a language that's usually used with Judaism, with Jeriah. It's the alphabet of Ben Sera is technically what it is. And that's actually where we actually get the story of what goes on between her and Adam. That's where we get most of the details of that. And we get a lot of the versions of that. And then that ties into the Zohar, which is another version of her that pops up in Judaism as well. Okay, so her name traditionally, it originates actually from a Sumerian word, which is Lilithu, which I may be pronouncing that wrong because most of my study is from reading, so don't hold me to 100% of the pronunciation of that, but it means wind spirit or female demon. Typically most of her origin stories, even all the way back to Sumeria, Mesopotamia, she is depicted as like a goddess with more demonic qualities. Typically you'll see her with like wings and horns and things like that. Usually that's how she's depicted. Most of the dark goddesses they're depicted in more of like a grotesque kind of like old hag and demonic way. I think she gets that more specifically, obviously, because she's known as the mother of demons, which we'll go into that as well. Though sometimes she wasn't always represented that way, because in Genesis, she was represented as Adam's first wife. So obviously in Genesis and in the Bible, they didn't represent her that way. They represented her as like this pure maiden woman until, she did what she did. And we'll go over like different versions of that. But briefly when it comes to that, because that's what most people know, the 3 different reasons for why she actually left the Garden of Eden and what happened with that. There's the one that most people know, which is the refusal to submit to Adam's demand, which is including sex only in the missionary position. That's something that I think people forget. It's not that she didn't want to have sex in the missionary position. It's that that was the only thing she was allowed. She was not allowed to look beyond what her sexual desires were. She wasn't allowed to do anything that she actually wanted. She was simply allowed that one position, that one desire. That was it. And it was what Adam wanted. It didn't think about her. So that is like one key thing I always like to point out. Like, it's not just that she didn't like, it's not that she didn't want that, it's that she wanted to be equal and she wanted her desires to be acknowledged as well. And she wanted the options to be able to do things that she wanted to do. Lilith's actions to sex while menstruating, that's another thing. She wanted to have sex while menstruating. Even the fact that she menstruated was seen as dirty and a sin. That's actually explained in the Talmud. That's a rule when it comes to women and impurity when it comes to menstruation. Like, you absolutely cannot have sex during menstruation. Like, it's seen as very, most people actually in the magic community will say that. I disagree with that. When I teach sex magic, I'll talk to you about that. But that is another reason in mythology why she left the Garden of Eden and why she's cast out. And another reason simply is because she wanted to be seen as an equal partner. She did not want to be seen as somebody that was attached to Adam. It's very, very, very specific in her creation story in the Bible that she was made at the exact same time as Adam from the earth. She was made from the same substance as he was. She was made at the same time as she was. There is absolutely no reason why she should not have been seen as his equal. She was created exactly as she was. She was not created as a part of him like Eve was. Eve was created as a part of him, which is why that submissive comes into and why they can have that dominance and why that becomes a thing. But when it comes to Lilith, like, this is another reason of why it was seen that she was kicked out or why she willingly left, because in some stories she was kicked out. Other stories she left on her own free will. She went to go do what she did because that's what she decided and she was done. But the persistence to be an equal partner, that is a very consistent thing across all of them. She wanted to be seen as an equal, and that simply was just not going to happen. So going back to her more in history, she has like more of her dark origins are tied more to like the Babylonian demonology. So there's amulets that we have found with incantations on them that are used to like counter sinister powers, and most of them are depicted as Lilith, because of that. So that's how they saw her. They also saw her as like a more like a winged spirited who like preyed on pregnant women and infants specifically. The reason why, I'll get into a little bit more detail, but just briefly, the reason why they did that is because she is actually one of the most fertile women on the entire planet, because she was the first woman ever created, and then she refused to continue to create for God's purpose. Therefore, she needed to be vilified. And so they saw it as, because they started to paint her as being infertile, so that's why she kept stealing everybody's babies and children and killing them. When in all reality, that's legit not what was happening. She was the most fertile woman to ever walk this planet. Lilith then ended up next migrating more towards like the ancient Egyptians and Israelites and towards the Greeks. She pops up in a couple different places there. She also has one appearance in the Bible where she's a wilderness that's summoned by the prophet Isaiah. We'll go over that a little bit more in detail as well. In the Middle Ages is when she starts to show up as the Jewish sources of like the dreadful, awful, vilified, first wife of Adam. So she doesn't really get that role until the Middle Ages. So that's when that role really kind of takes place for her, and that's where it starts to affect her. In the Renaissance, though, she starts to take on a little bit more of like a freedom role. That's where we start to see her expression of freedom, of self-liberation, of rebellion, of becoming who you want to be. Because Michelangelo actually starts to really portray her in kind of more of like, he does still portray her as like a half woman, half serpent, but he portrays her very much as like more liberal, like I said, liberation, freedom, overcoming things like that. And then obviously then we get into nowadays, and she is like, she's a very like modern feminists really use her as a symbol. They create her for like independence from Adam. They use her for domestic violence and things like that. And I think that's kind of the brief rundown of that. And then I'll kind of start going into more detail here. Of everything, but I wanted to give you kind of a brief rundown of where we're going to go, because there is, like I said, there's so much for her, and she does pop up in so many different places. And like I said, I am going to go into super detail now, but before I do that, are there any questions? And then I'm going to catch up in the chat. Huh. I don't know if I've seen her depicted as a redhead. I'm going to look into that, actually. I've almost always seen her depicted as having raven hair or black hair. I've never seen her. I'm going to look into that.
Me too. I feel like the more modern depictions of her are, raven haired,
Yeah.
sort of fair skin. But I might just want to send you that book, that it's
Yeah.
an ebook. It's very interesting.
Why was she created after Eve? Lilith wasn't created after Eve, Michelle. Lilith was created first. Eve was created because of what Lilith did. Eve was created because of Lilith's actions and because Adam was whining and needed to not be alone and needed a partner. And Lilith refused to go back. I've always seen her with white hair. Really? I've never seen her. Interesting. Ah, now I want to see all these. I remember always seeing her as a redhead when I was younger. Only seen her. Yeah, interesting. That's so interesting. That's so, ooh. See, and this is the amazing thing about the goddesses and deities. They can come to you in different, like, epithets as well. They can come to you in different images in different ways. And it doesn't mean, like, anybody's right or wrong, but I just absolutely love it. I could see her being absolutely gorgeous, though, with white hair. And I could see that that would just, whew. Now you have me thinking about that, honey. Okay. I'm not going to get sidetracked on that. We're going to go back to the history. Okay. Yes, I love it, though. Okay. So, like I said, where she really first shows up is actually in the Epic of Gilgamesh. If you don't know who Gilgamesh is and the Epic of Gilgamesh, I just recommend going and reading it. That is a lot to try to explain, and I don't know if I can briefly explain. But when she pops up in there, she is actually one of the villains that pops up. She is specifically named. She is one that actually takes away the crown. To be able to she takes away a crown, and in order to actually be able to get her to leave, Gilgamesh kills a dragon which ends up creating a bird to fly up into a mountains, and it terrifies her and she flees into the desert. Gilgamesh was simply just on a mission to try to get her to leave. That's pretty much what that was, with that, because she was seen as a demon and they wanted her gone. And so in that one, she flees to the desert, and then that's where we end up starting seeing her popping up in other places, and you'll see her roaming around with different men, and we'll go through that. I don't know any other way to phrase that, but she does, like, there's so many different stories of her with very specific, like, men throughout history and like who she has children with. And then, so with this, the reason why I bring this up with the Gilgamesh, for one, that's the first place that we see her in written text. She also is tied to this with a terracotta plaque that's known as the Burnie of Relief. It shows her as an incredibly beautiful, like, naked woman with bird-like wings, taloned feet. And this is why, like, you get the Screech Owl that you'll see going throughout history with her. That really shows up in Judaism, but this is the first, like, depiction that we have on this. Yes, Gilgamesh is so amazing. Like, that's why I said, like, it's a lot. Like, I just recommend reading that story if you haven't, and like really looking into it and looking into the Talmud as well. Because yes, his quest, there's a lot to it. And honestly, if you really look at almost all pantheons, like, at some point in time, like, it ties back almost that far. If it doesn't stop at Egypt, if it goes further back than Egypt and like goes into Sumeria and goes into Mesopotamia, like, almost always Gilgamesh is tied to it, at least from what I've come across throughout my different years of study. Like, it's, if you don't know that story, it's one that you definitely need to read. Okay, so in early incantations, they also, like I said, they see her as a demon with wings. She pops up in Syria as well. She's on a tablet there as well, where it's talking about, she's specifically named there as a demon that needs to be protected against. Will you do? Yep, I will. She's on my list. I don't know when. I can't promise when, because I'm not kidding. I have about 35 deities on that list, but I will get to her. Okay, so then there's, like I said, there's that plaque, and then she ends up going over into Northeast, where we're getting that more familiar myth of her, which is in the Bible. She's mentioned only once in the Bible, and that's in Isaiah 34. And it's talking about the kingdom of the Hebrew prophecy, which is spanning years of the 39 chapters. I would definitely go and look at that. They specifically talk about how they need to go and how Lilith is going to be reposed there and she needs to be slain, and she's very specifically named, and they give no more details about that. The reason why I point that out is because Lilith is so well known throughout culture she doesn't even need to be explained. They don't need to tell you anything about her, who she is. You just need to say her name. You know who she is, and they know what to do with her, do for her. They've already built her up pretty badly at this point. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, this is kind of where Isaiah and this ties in together, because this is where the story of what she was doing when she fled to the desert happens, because Isaiah finds her, like they're in the desert. That's when they're wandering in the desert when he comes across her and that she needs to be slain. So that's one story that connects to what she does after Gilgamesh before we see her again. I had mentioned earlier as well, the Bible, she's not mentioned specifically by name in Genesis, but we can infer that she's mentioned in Genesis, because in Genesis book 1, they talk about, there's a specific verse. I have it written down in the study guide somewhere. I just can't remember it right off the top of my head. But in Genesis 1, there's a very specific verse where they state that men and women were made at the exact same time, and they are made of the earth. And then in Genesis 2, that's when you get the remake and the retelling of that story, where you get it's Eve, to where it's made, Adam is made of earth and Eve is made of his rib. So she is, like I said, that's just, we're inferring that they're talking about Lilith there. So that's why I say specifically that she's only in the Bible once, because her name is literally only in there once, but we have the inference that that is who they're talking about when they are in Genesis 1 as well. And this really comes up actually in the King James, once they switched the King James version. I've noticed in other versions and from the literature that I've looked at and like other teachers that I've looked at with Lilith, they don't really see her name specifically mentioned until the King James Bible. I'm not quite sure why, but that is, I just wanted to make that a point as well. King James is when a lot of the transition changed and a lot of things got rewritten. So while she's not mentioned in the Bible again, she also does resurface in Christianity again, because she's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. She's in the Quran sect, which is typically, like, that section is really all about the demonology. She appears in the Song for a Sage, which is a hymn specifically to be used for exorcisms and how to perform exorcisms and how to exorcise demons from others. So she does, like I said, she shows up in Christianity there again, but it's like, again, it's not in the Bible, it's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And like, she is legitimately named. I have the quotation in there for you so that you can see that as well. And then after the Dead Sea Scrolls were written, she starts to pop up again in the Babylonian Talmud, where female demons are journeying into like the Jewish inquiries. The Talmud references Lilith a few times. You get a couple of glimpses into like who she is and what she looked like for the Babylonian images. And again, this is where you really see like the long hair. It reinforces like the more like demon-like version of her as a succubus, because that is another title that she's known as, is known as a succubus, because she is the ultimate seductress and she does it with absolutely she's amazing at it. I'm sorry. I channel that power from her a lot and I love it. Her sex magic and her ability to like give sexual freedom and be a seductress, and the power she can pull out of that is absolutely amazing. And then let's see. This is also where you start to get the story. And with the Talmud, that's where you see the story where she's a female theme, like where you get that story of her going in. Succubi are so fun. Sorry, honey. I love succubi. If you want to, we can have a personal discussion about this after class. I don't always share something with everybody, but if you're totally into succubi and incubi, like that's definitely something it's a super fun topic. I love it. Okay, sidetracked off of that. So that's where you actually see that first story start to pop up, where you guys had actually mentioned when we were talking earlier, where I don't remember who specifically had said it, but where there's a story of her going into men's bed at night, making them have surprise orgasms and insemination, so then she could produce children, because like I said, she's the most fertile woman to ever walk this earth. And so that is kind of where this first story starts to pop up. And this is where you start to see her start to be named as the night demon. You start to see her named more as the mother of demons. You start to see that more of those like darker connotations popping up with her. Is really kind of here with the Talmud and where all these stories start to come up. There's lots of incantation bowls that we find with Aramaic spells also around the Talmud and around this time that are really seen with her, where she really starts to become a lot more present. I mean, we have so many artifacts of her. I have, like I said, I have lists in here. Then we get to the Middle Ages again, and this is somewhere prior to about the year 1000 is where we have the alphabet of Ben Sura was introduced. It is an anonymous text that contains 22 episodes that correspond to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. The fifth episode includes Lilith specifically, where she tantalizes and where she is said to tantalize and terrify the populations for generations to come. It paints her as being very destructive, that she can fly, that she has a penchant for sex. Perverted sex is what they say. I personally, as long as consent is involved, don't feel that there's anything perverted when it comes to sex, but they call her perverted. And then it also this is where this twist comes in. This is where we get the story. This is where we get that she's Adam's friend before Eve, who leaves Eden because she feels that she's being treated inferior. So this is where this story comes in. This story doesn't come in until like literally right before the year 1000. So this is, like I said, we have about 3000 years of history of her prior to this. In this narrative, she is framed within the tale of King Nebuchadnezzar. I'm going to say that wrong, of Babylon. So what really ends up happening with her is, so she gets blamed for causing a king's son to be ill. And there's these three healing angels that are traveling around. They're trying to subdue evil spirits, such as Lilith. And then they use biblical text. They use all biblical incantations. I would personally say that's more like Enochian magic, but they don't call it that at that point in time. To try to heal this king's son of this illness that they think Lilith is causing. And she's like, no, I'm not causing this. And then they create this story of like why she's so evil. And the story that they have behind it, like I said, is this whole that she was created with Adam. She decided there's that 3 different versions. And this one, it's the one where she refuses to lie underneath Adam completely during sex, but insist that the bottom, like Adam is supposed to be on the bottom. They insist that instead of wanting to be equal, she's claiming that she's better than Adam. That's what this version of this story is trying to portray with her, and that she believes that she should not have to perform any of the wifely traditional expected duties of her because that puts her in a submissive position, and she's actually the more powerful one, and that she's the one that is simply just more powerful. Then there's also this version with this story where she states that we're just equal. So I want to make those 2 differentials. The alphabet specifically says that she wants to be more than him, but it splits in a couple places. There's actually validity to her argument when you look at the way that the Hebrew text break down the language even. So it even contradicts itself, which is why I think the story was created. Because it specifically actually says that those 2 words come from the exact same root. Adam and Lilith are literally like the word root of earth. They're both completely made of substance of earth, so they are equal. So that's also a point that I like to make out, is like it completely contradicts itself, and she points that out to them as well. When it comes to this, she decides to leave the Garden of Eden. She decides to leave and go figure out what she wants to do. The struggle really continues with Adam and her, like the stubbornness, like she's really, really offended by his stubbornness. She doesn't want to have anything to do with it. So then she actually does something that you're not allowed to do. She says God's sacred name. She says God's sacred name out loud. It is so holy that it is unspeakable. Even to this day, only head priests, like in the Judaism tradition, are allowed to speak this name, and it's only on one specific day of the year. It's like you're really not supposed to say this out loud, but what she did is she said it out loud because she wanted help. She was sick and tired of this. She wanted to be fixed. But of course, because you're not allowed to say that out loud, and she did it anyways, that became a problem. That was seen as rebellion. That was seen as breaking rules. That was seen as something that you're not supposed to do. And also, God just didn't agree with her. He said that she needed to be in the garden. She needed to fulfill her duties. She needed to fill her purpose. She needed to fill her role. So then what she decided to do, because she felt like she was deemed as unworthy, she felt like she was deemed like she wasn't being heard and that she shouldn't be within the paradise, she left. She literally flees. She completely flees because she doesn't want to be there. She feels like it's not for her. And even like because she's made of earth, she ends up staying with earth. And then she ends up reestablishing, like I said, her whole new generation where she becomes a supernatural creature as like a winged demon. We have a question. Okay, go ahead.
You're fine.
Hey, I just had a question when you mentioned that she said God's holy name. And I
Yes.
just thought of something. When I look at Jewish scriptures, I noticed that they, like when they spell the word God, like they take the G out and just, and that just brought up that when you mentioned that. And like maybe that's the reason why they do that. I don't know.
Highly possible. I can't say 100% sure because I'm not super studied in that faith because it's not like my faith and my culture. But yes, I've noticed that as well from the texts that I've noticed. And they're very clear on like what we know as like Yahweh, which is really the sacred name, is like you're really not supposed to say that out loud. So they're pretty clear on that. And like that is what she said. And that's the name that she said. So yes, I could definitely see that because I've noticed that as well. It's not ever all there. Okay. Any other questions before I keep going? Because I might have missed some in the chat. I hope I didn't.
In my notes, I just want to clarify earlier.
Yes.
You said she's known as the wind or winged spirit.
That's what her original that's the original meaning of her name. So when you go down to like the very original meaning of what her name meant in Samaria, where her name comes from, that's what it means. Wind spirit or female demon.
Oh, so you're saying W-I-N-D.
Yes, W-I-N-D.
Okay, I didn't know if you were saying W-I-N-G-E-D, winged. I was just trying to make sure I got my notes good.
Nope, I could see that because I could see that making sense though. So thank you
But
for
someone else said that in the chat. They were like, I can see it being both. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, so then next, these two, we have two stories that actually kind of like tie back together. The alphabet of Ben Sarah ends up saying what they say is that her destination when she flees is the Red Sea. And then, like I said, the Gilgamesh ties into the Isaiah episodes, and then she flees to the desert. So depending on which story you're looking at, like she's gonna end up in two different locations. When it comes to the story with the alphabet Ben Sarah, which is where she ends up in the Red Sea, this is where we get the story where the Almighty tells Adam that if Lilith fails to return, 100 of her children must die each and every day that she fails to return to the Garden of Eden and she fails to fulfill her wifely duties and fails to fulfill her duties to Adam. And so this actually kind of starts this whole thing with her because what happens is three angels are actually sent out to search for her. They can't find her. She keeps not showing up. She keeps not going back to that. And then because she chooses to do so, they actually start killing her children. Like they actually start killing 100 of her children a day. But because she's the most fertile mother of the world, she decides to actually create her own species, her own children on her own. And that's when demons come. There's a whole other story also with demons with Samael, which I'm going to get to in a little bit, but I'm just telling you the version from the alphabet Ben Sarah as well. So this is this version. She suggests that because of that, and because of that mistreatment, because they started doing that to her, that's why she starts in retaliation. She starts going out and she starts mistreating all of God's children. She starts killing 100 of his children a day because he did it to her first. She sees it as retribution. She sees it as retaliation. She sees it as my mistreatment was absolutely unacceptable. So I'm going to do what you did to me, an eye for an eye. So that's where they go into that part of that story. And then what ends up happening is eventually the three angels end up catching up with her. They end up catching her. What they're going to do is her punishment is they're actually going to drowning her in the Red Sea. In order to stop that from happening, she swears in the name of God that she will no longer harm any infants who wear an amulet that have her name on it. And that creates some type of contract. It creates an agreement between gods and the angels, which therefore signifies that she's saying that I'm connected to the divine. The divine is still more powerful than me. So he takes that as her kind of bowing down. And that is why like he ends up not having the angels drown her in the sea. And then Lilith's relationship with Adam really doesn't even matter at that point because they have Eve in and they kind of just let her go and roam and do her own thing, and they filled up the story of her afterwards. And then they actually keep to the contract, and she keeps to the contract as well, that as long as there are infants or children wearing amulets with her sigil and in her honor, she does not harm them, she doesn't do anything to them. And that's also, again, why we see a lot of those archaeological artifacts, is because of this specific part of the story and this specific legend as well. And then, like I said, the reason why I think this story really exists and why they ended up creating this and kind of rewriting this and why it took on so much of it is because of in Genesis 1, looks like I have it right here. Genesis 1:27, which is where it talks about how like humankind, male and female, he created them. So like he created them together. What does her sigil look like? I actually have it in the study guide. I do have it in the study guide. I can't remember what page. I think it is on the front page in one of the pictures, and then I do have it bigger for you to be able to see. Oh, my numbers aren't paged. My pages aren't numbered. I wonder. I can copy and paste one too and put one into the chat for you. There's one basic sigil that a lot of people use, but there's a lot of different sigils. And then the other thing with sigils is they're going to have more power if you create them on your own. But I can give you like the base sigils as well. I think, like I said, I do have one in my study guide. Okay, where was I with her story? Okay, so I talked about how Andrea, you may have heard my son. He woke up from his nap, so my husband was getting him from his bedroom into his playroom. So that may have been what you heard. And I apologize, but at times that may be a part of my classes. I do have a 2.5-year-old who is on the spectrum, and that's a big part of my life. So you may end up hearing him in the background sometimes. There's just nothing I can do about it. Okay. Let's see. Next one here. Where was I with her story? I talked about all of that. I'm not going to go over all the different reasons of why we think the alphabet Ben Sarah can exist. You guys can read that for you in my study guide. Yes, it is. I've noticed that as well. I've made that connection as well. My husband's really big on noticing like connections to Saturn. So like I've become aware of it. Okay, so next in the milestone of Lilith's journey is where she ends up in the Zohar. That elaborates an earlier account of Lilith's birth in Eden. Zohar, where do I find the study guide? It is in the chat. If you don't see it in the chat right now, I can put the link in there again. Otherwise, it is if you are a student, it is in all of our community chats on Facebook and on our community page. And then, like I said, I am creating a page on the website. You guys will be able to find them all there. But if I need to copy and paste the link in the chat, I can do that. Just let me know. Okay, so the Zohar, it literally means splendor. It's the Hebrew title for the Kabbalist, I can never pronounce it, the Kabbalist tome. It was first compiled in Spain. There's other sources of it as well, and it shows up later. There is Lilith, she does show up in there in a rereading of Genesis 1:27, where they're talking again about how he created them, not just him and her. And then she also is showing up again in Urban 18:8. It also elaborates that the male and female were soon separated. So that's the Zohar talks about that story. So God placed Adam in a deep slumber when they are separated. So that's part of that story. And while doing that, he becomes detached. And the part that becomes attached from him is actually the original Lilith. So that's the Zohar's version of the story. The Zohar doesn't claim that Lilith is actually made of the earth. The Zohar claims that Lilith is made from Adam. That Adam was sad, he was lonely, he went into the super deep slumber to kind of like deal with his depression and his sadness, loneliness. And then a portion of him detached, and that was Lilith, and he was conceived from him. And then another passage also indicated that Eve was created, and when Lilith sees her, she sees her as a rival. And sees her as a rival. So then because she sees her as a rival, gets jealous of Eve, sees her as, you know, competition, she flees. So the Zohar has that version of her story in there. She's also seen in the Zohar in place, in Zohar 19b, she's specifically seen as wandering about the night, vexing the sons of men and causing them to be able to defile themselves. So she talks that they paint her as being the breeder of evil spirits and carrying diseases. At several different points, the Zohar breaks away from the traditional presentation of her and kind of paints her more as, she actually sends men more into exile. She also sends she does something with Israel's mother as well. She's kind of the reason why Israel ends up in kind of the mess that they end up in. That's very complicated to actually explain. I recommend actually just reading that part of the Zohar if you can get your hands on that. And then the final invocation, actually including her, is where she ends up as a personification of evil because she is attached to Asmodeus or Samael. He's associated with Satan and the serpent. They end up having an unholy alliance. They end up becoming a couple. They end up having children. They end up creating like this huge demonic horde. That's where she ends up becoming the mother of demons. That's where this story comes, is the final invocation in the Zohar. And then this specific story ties into another sect of religions, which we'll talk about next. But she appears in there, like that's where we get that first representation of her being a mother of demons. That's where we get the first representation of her meeting Samuel and Asmodeus. Those are two different names that he's known by. And then obviously later we end up seeing her in a bunch of different writings in earlier history and modern history. You can kind of read through that later, and how she's kind of being portrayed now. And then I think that's it for her history for the most part. Before I go into really how she's seen in Jewish history and biblical text and go into that a little bit more detail because that's kind of where her main story is. But that was the more detailed rundown of where she is all over the place in history. And then, like I said, when it comes to that idea in the Zohar of her being with Samael and Asmodeus, that really actually ties into Lilith with Luciferian witchcraft and Luciferianism. That's really, I love it. It's super, super interesting. And we'll go over that after I talk about Judaism a little bit more with her, because that's where she really is attached to. Do you guys have any questions before I talk about that a little bit more? I'm taking that as a no.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna I look terrible, everybody, but I'm gonna turn my camera on so I can actually ask my question. So you can see. How do I turn my camera on? So my question, I don't know how to turn the camera around. So I ordered the Zohar. I got all of it, but I haven't even cracked it open yet. So to go read what you're saying, would it be in this or this one? So I have the whole thing.
So you're gonna want, she shows up, they should be labeled for you. Zohar 19 specifically, she shows up. So Zohar
would it be
19,
book 19?
Yep.
Okay.
And 34, she's also in there as well.
But if the books go up to 23.
Interesting. Are they chaptered on the inside for you to tell you what they're set up as?
On the inside, the chapters?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, they're so new. Just in case anybody's interested, the cheapest place to order this whole set is through I think it's Kabbalistic Center, the one that's affiliated with Madonna. Because other than that, it's like $2,000. But I got this on sale for like $200 if anybody's interested.
Okay. Which version of that is that for you?
This is the Zohar, the 23 set.
Okay.
So it's 1 through 23. And then I have this one too.
Okay. Can you, after class, send me a PM with what the specific even just a picture of the title, and then I will find you the exact section within which book it's in.
Sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome, because they all print differently, so I will do that for you. That's super cool that you have that. That's super, super cool. I love that you have that. Oh yes. Why were her children not human? Did she have human children? Eden. So as far as I'm aware, I have never come across of that. If somebody knows differently, I'm not going to discredit that at all. There's so much about her. It's highly possible I've missed that, but I have never come across her having human children in Eden, or her like having children with Adam. I haven't seen that in text before. From my understanding, the reason why almost all of her children end up seen as demons in all the different versions that I've come across, there's kind of like two different theories I have for that. One is she's no longer like seen as like blessed and accepted by God. She's cast out. Like she's no longer seen as like, worthy. So what else is he going to call her children? Like he's gotta do something. Like they have to, like they're not going to be accepted. So like that's kind of why I think that's part of it, is like they're no longer like this, not the same divinity. Another reason why I hear that is because of her having Samuel and Asmodeus as consorts. Those children are where the demons come from, and then because like of that, then all of her children going forward are then considered demons because of that. If that's fair, I don't know, but that's kind of just the way I guess the cookie crumbles with that. But that's kind of how I feel. Why? And a side note that I think is relevant somehow. Why this garden is named Eden? I've heard so many different theories of why the garden is named Eden. That I could actually get on a soapbox about that, honey. You know what? I'm gonna go on a rant in the chat tonight, in the divination chat on this. Is that fair? Can I do that? Are you okay with that? Because there's so many different reasons for why it's called that. Okay, I'll do that. I'm sure Alex isn't gonna mind. Alex already said she's probably gonna go on 1 a.m. rants again. So okay, I will do that. If I don't do that, I'll just do like I'll type something up, like almost like a study guide or blog post, like a mini one, because there's so many reasons to that, and some of them actually make me frustrated. So I will do that. Okay, so I think, where was I? We were on Jewish tradition. I don't know if I need to go through it that much more, to be honest. That with time, I feel like I've covered her history really extensively. So every single child on Earth was considered her child because she was the original mother at that point in those versions of the story. So in those versions of the story, to where they killed her children and then she ended up eating children, like as retaliation, when you're looking at those versions of the story, every single child, like every single human being on Earth at that point would have been considered like her mother, because she was the mother of like all humans at that point. She's the most fertile woman on the planet. And she was the one that like kept the population like balanced. She was the one that kept like population going. So you know what? I take back what I said before. Then technically, yes, there is writing of her having children with Adam. They just don't specifically state it. I take that back. Thank you for making me aware of that, because I actually completely take that back. They don't specifically state and like name her having children, but yes, every child on Earth would have been considered hers at that point. Every human. Okay. Thank you for that, Morgan. I really, really appreciate that. I super, 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 super appreciate that. You helped me make that connection. I love that. Thank you. Okay. That's why you learn something new every day, and questions are so important. Okay, so when we're looking at Lilith and Luciferian witchcraft and Luciferianism as a religion as a whole, they hold her in an absolute complete reverence and respect. They see her as having many sides. She is the complete spectrum of divine feminine energies. She's not seen solely as like a dark energy. She is actually seen in Luciferianism as the complete spectrum of divine feminine energy. She's seen as like the light all the way over here, like both sides. And then there are some misconceptions that they specifically state like I said, we went over all the other historical stories. We went over that, but these are what they feel are misconceptions based on their beliefs and their practices, and with them being Luciferians. The first misconception that they put out there is everybody likes to say that she's the wife of Satan. She's not. She actually never has anything to do with Satan. She never lays with Satan. She never lays with Lucifer. That's not a thing. That's not something that happens. She's actually the consort and lover of Samuel. Samuel's like literally, he's like Satan's adversary. Like Satan and him like butt heads. Like they don't always get along. Samuel's not a demon. He is an angel. He is one that is a dark angel, but he's not aligned with the group of holy angels. Yes, the Bible does speak of others not born of Adam and Eve. And then Samuel also, like, he likes to work with darker beings of other supernatural realms and spiritual realms. So, like, he's not Satan. Like, he's very different. And, like, that is who her consort is. It's not Satan. They won't, like, they're very specific of that. And, like, that is who her lover is. And then Samuel and Lilith, they have many, 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 many children together. She's the first of her kind. So she is the mother of all things when it comes to that. She's great with lust, passion, and seduction when it comes to that. The other misconception is that a lot of people base her as like a harlot, and she's not. Like when she's with somebody, like she's very committed to that person. Like Samuel, she's very committed to that person. So like she's not some harlot that's just running around like having sex with everybody and things like that. Like, yes, does she have the absolute power and commanding of a seductress, and is she fabulous with sex magic and passion? Does she know how to really truly harness power using sex as a mechanism and a way of like manipulation in the best way ever? Yes, but she's not a harlot. She's not running around sleeping with everybody. That's not who she is. She enjoys and loves sex. She loves what it can do for you. She loves the spiritual connection sex has for you. She is all about sex magic when it comes to this, especially like in this tradition. Side note, when it comes to like sex magic on this, like a big reason why she's super huge on it is like the pelvis is where your soul literally is housed and resides. Like that's literally where your soul lives. So like when you are having sex with your partner and your other being, those are your souls getting as close as they possibly can to touch. Like is them getting as close as they possibly can to be united and be whole. So like she fully understands and grasps like how powerful of a connection that is. So that's where she's coming at sex from. She's not coming in as a way to like completely meet desires and needs. Yes, that is a part of it. It should be an enjoyable and fun, but she's coming at it from a very spiritual and soul like connection. Especially like I said with Samael. Like they have a very, very deep bond and connection. Like their love is very deep and it's very interesting. The other thing is in Luciferianism and when it comes to Luciferian witchcraft, they do not at all subscribe to any part in history where she has eaten babies, killed babies, or anything like that. They don't subscribe to that. They completely take that out of her history. That's something that they do not want that a part of that. So if you choose to like worship her in this way and going down this path, just make sure like that is something that they're very set on, because they see her, like I said, as their divine mother. Like she's absolutely like the divine mother. So like why would she, even in retaliation, why would she eat somebody else's children? Like why would she cause somebody else the same pain that she's been caused? So they view her that way. Personally, that's also my view. I don't practice Luciferian specifically with her, but personally that's where I come at her from. I also can understand that like if she did go and eat their children, I totally get it, and I think it's valid. So that's I look at it from both ways. And then they really view her as like the queen of darkness. They really see her as being super balanced. They really see her as, like I said, being the empowerment of women, and still like allowing them to be there. They claim that like she can hear every single dark whisper that's ever said into the night. So she's the keeper of secrets. They also see her as an absolutely tremendous healer, and she usually does that through her love and through her sex magic and things like that. I see incredibly healing. You heard Jody talk about it. What she's done for me and with healing has been absolutely amazing. The energy that she wraps you around in, it's very abrasive, but it is abrasive in the absolute best way and almost the most comforting way that you can think of. And then when it comes to her with them as well, She's very like they use her for like seeking justice for others, pro-independence. They use her a lot when it comes to divination. She's super, super key with divination in those practices for healing. And then also you can use her with necromancy. That's a taboo topic for some. I love it. Necromancy is super, super fun. It's super interesting and I absolutely love it. So there's that. I do have a whole section here next when it talks about her with feminism and sexual liberation, especially with witches. She like we've kind of talked about it before. She is literally seen as like a feminine identity. We see her, like I said, is liberation, as freedom, as rebellion, as taking back your power. Like, and I guess not even taking back. She never even let it go. Like she never even let her power go. So it's really just like standing in who you are and like owning all of that. And then she also like on the other side, like she absolutely knows the pain of rejection. She knows what it feels like to be rejected and shunned and pushed out and like not treated in a just way. Like what she asked for was absolutely reasonable. And so that's another side of her. Like she can really help like hone that and understand that. She was wandering around for 4,000 years after she was rejected. There's different stories of what she was doing for 4,000 years. We can't even agree on what she was doing. So like she really truly knows what loneliness and rejection feels like. So that's something that like when it comes to like liberation and feminism, she could really help you with as well. She helps you be willing to stand up and speak for your own. Like she really, really, really helps you find that voice and grab that voice. I mean, she said the one word you're not allowed to say. Like she did the one thing, she spoke it. She's like, I don't care. I'm gonna figure this out. My needs are gonna get met. I'm gonna be heard. So that's something as well with her when it comes underneath those categories that she can really help you with. And then I just want to also remind people, now that we're really going to start with like the work with her, she may not present to you right away. She may take time. She may present to you right away. And she may present to you in very different ways. Even when I invoke her for you guys here in a little bit, she may not come to you visually, and that's fine. You may smell her, you may hear her, you may feel her. Like she will show up to you in different ways at different times. She is one of the deities to where I will say with absolute, like utmost certainty, like she will not come to you unless you are ready. Like, unless you are ready, she will not present herself to you. That doesn't mean to get discouraged. That just means that she feels like you have more work to do before you can show up. So continue to do that work before she will show up to you. Because working with deities and invoking them, it's not some like contract to where like you owe them and when I call to them, they have to come. When I invoke her in a little bit, she could totally choose to shut me out and not show up. And that's fine. She has every right to do that. So that's something like to keep in mind as well with this is like she may not show up and that's totally fine. And if she does, it's amazing. So Lilith in witchcraft, she can be used for a lot of different reasons. Specifically in witchcraft, like I said, we touched on this Luciferian witchcraft specifically, but if you want to go outside of that, other ways that you can work with her are improving your sexual relationships, so creating balance within your sexual relationships. So if you feel like your sexual desires are not being met as often as your partner's sexual desires aren't being met, or if for some reason you still feel like shame or feel like you can't even bring up your full sexual desires to your partner, that's not healthy and that's a lonely way to be in a partnership. This can also help improve that sexual relationship as well, where you have that complete freedom and ability to express those needs so that they can get met because they can't meet them if they're not expressed. Healing sexual trauma, she is absolutely amazing for that. Personally, I can speak on that. She does absolute fantastic wonders for that. If you do want more on that, that is such a personal topic. I did not want to put anything in the study guide on that. I would prefer for you to personally reach out to me because that, like I said, that is a very personal thing, but she can help you with that. Like I've touched on before, like asserting your independence and women's rights, you can do magic with that. I call her and invoke her to every single pro-abortion protest I lead, every single pro-abortion thing that I do. She is there. Her sigil is on all of our stuff. Like she is amazing for all of that. She is fantastic. She's great for fighting the patriarchy and tearing things down and oppression, boosting self-confidence. I think this is one thing a lot of people forget about and miss. They try to go for the really big things with her, but she can really help just simply boost your confidence and your self-esteem and your self-love and like your ability to just like love yourself and be confident in who you are. So she can really help you in that. Gaining respect and recognition for yourself and the contributions that you put out into the world. Exploring and awakening your sexuality. That comes to sexual identity, gender identity, like all of that. I've known I was bisexual for an incredibly long time, since I was 15, but I was not able to come out of the closet until 2 years ago, and it was literally because of her. She literally came to me and slapped me in the, like literally slapped me in the face and told me, "You are such an authentic person. Why is this being hidden from you? And I'm very disappointed." And she really woke me up. It's like, why? She literally looked at me as like, why? So she can really, really help you with that. She can really make you feel comfortable with that. She can make you really understand like who you are and not feel shame in that, and not feel like stereotypes are boxing you in. Sex magic. I love sex magic. Sex magic is fantastic. She is almost always one that I call when it comes to sex magic. If you have never done a magic spell, a manifestation, set a sigil with the power of an orgasm, either with yourself or with your partner, I highly recommend doing it. The power and intention that comes into that, the spiritual connection you get between the two of you is absolutely fantastic. It is amazing. The soul connection, the work that you can do, it's amazing. She is one that you can you can use for this. I am going to teach a class on sex magic, by the way, because it's fantastic. I love it. Also, sacred prostitution falls underneath this. She doesn't specifically have a sacred prostitution practice that is tied to her, but I have used her and called her when it comes to the art and practice of sacred prostitution. So I would also put that in there as well. She can help with healing when it comes to like menstrual issues and women issues. She can help you work with your shadow self, specifically more like your feminine energies. And this doesn't mean like just women, like men have feminine energy too. Like we all have both male and feminine energies. So that is also another thing. Reclaiming your personal power. There are lots of spells, incantations, and rituals for that. And then womb healing. I am teaching a class on that. I don't know if I think it's this week. I think it's this week. Yes, she's absolutely fantastic to help connecting you to other deities through magic. Yes, honey, I'm gonna second that as well. She is a great starting point. Because she's so abrasive and like in your face, she's a great starting point. Because she also will introduce you to other deities. I think it's because of her connection to Hecate, and Hecate is goddess of the crossroads. So I think because of that connection is why I personally feel she's got a closer connection to Crossroads that way, because of that friendship, which helps her be able to navigate you to other people. Personally, that's my view, but I love it. Okay. Like I said, the classes are being recorded, so they will be on YouTube here shortly for you guys. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, so like I said, womb healing, I'm going to go over that way more in detail when in my class. I'm not going to go too much more into that. Who's the best goddess for attracting a mate? It depends on what type of mate you want. And it also depends on what your zodiac sign is, because that is going to play a massive part into your partnership and what mate you need. That's a big question. Because it depends on what type of mate you want. Because for example, like if I were to go to like Aphrodite for attracting a mate, I don't think I would be very happy. I'm not going to like somebody that I don't think Aphrodite is going to bring forward to me. It's going to be way more focused on love and things like that. And I need somebody who's like intellectually going to be there and challenge me and be a part of all of that. I don't need the fluffy stuff quite as much. Sometimes I get bothered by it, but a male Aquarius. I'm gonna get back to you after class on that, Michelle. I have a couple of thoughts, but I have a couple of thoughts on that one. For some reason, I feel like Artemis would be a really good one, and I'm not quite sure why. But I feel like Artemis would be specifically for that energy, and I don't know why, but for some reason, that's what I'm thinking. I'm gonna look into that for you after class more. Okay. So ways to connect with her are simply through ritual, meditation, divination, creating spells or charm bags for empowerment, protection, and self assertion, and then shadow work. Shadow work, shadow work, shadow work, shadow work, shadow work. Lilith is massively attached to shadow work. Shadow work is one of the strongest ways to get a hold of her, and meditation as well. If you don't know a lot about shadow work, I have done a class on it. I might need a bonus. Okay. I might need to do that. So if you haven't seen my class on shadow work, if you weren't there, I did put a study guide in the chat, so you can look that over. And then when the class gets posted, definitely take a look at it. Otherwise, our professor Danielle also has a video in her psychic and sensitivity training classes on shadow work. She does it a little bit differently than me, but it's still amazing. And then color and crystal associations. I'm just gonna get to that right now. It's my next thing. So her correspondences. Crystals are going to be onyx, red jasper, obsidian, red carnelian, black moonstone, black tourmaline, garnet, and clear quartz. You can use clear quartz honestly for every single deity. You will always see that on there. Clear quartz is a universal crystal that amplifies almost everything. For her, it's pretty much all the dark crystals. So anything that's going to be black or red. That was too fast. It's in the study guide too, Gane. But I'll go over it one more time. Onyx, red jasper, obsidian, red carnelian, black moonstone, black tourmaline, garnet, and clear quartz. Did you get more of them that time? I hope so. I know I talk really fast. I'm trying really hard to slow down. Awesome. Okay, and then herbs and plants that have to deal with her are belladonna, nightshade, and hemlock. Please be very careful with those because they are poisonous. Most people won't end up working with those because of that. So if you don't want to work with poisonous plants, you can work with mugwort, sandalwood, and ponticelli, and then rose as well. Specifically red roses, I would recommend. She's tied to the element of air. Her colors are black and red. The days that she's associated to and the best to be able to connect to her to are going to be Wednesdays and Fridays. And then depending on your cultural background and depending on which version of her you choose to go to, if you choose to stick with the Jewish creation story and you want to honor her the way the Judaism mythology and the Judaism practices do, you can also honor her during the time of Shabbat. She's usually honored before and after Shabbat, depending on your belief and depending on where you fall underneath those cultures. Like I said, though, that's a personal choice, and I wanted to make sure I notated that because I didn't want to leave that out because, like I said, that is culture specific. The best time of the day to work with her is going to be the witching hour. You can call on her at any time, but that's going to be your most effective. The best moon phases are going to be the new moon, specifically the dark moon of that phase. And then sacred days for her are going to be Beltane. The reason why I say Beltane is because Beltane is all about sex, and she loves sex and sexual freedom. So Beltane is super big for her. October 24th. The reason why this one is considered that is because that in some sources, and it's also classified as a Sumerian holiday to mark the end of the harvest, but in some sources, that's actually the date that they claim that Lilith actually left the Garden of Eden. And then February 29th when there's leap years. So this is said to be the day that women can break free of traditional norms and actually be able to fully liberate themselves is on February 29th on leap years every 4 years. So that's another super sacred day for her. Animals that are associated with her are going to be cats, snakes, owls, and goats. Sometimes we come across the unicorns and the dragons as well. I personally don't use the dragon one just because of the story that's tied to Gilgamesh with that, and the dragon is the thing that was used to be able to scare her off to flee. But I've seen a lot of people use dragons because dragons are sometimes tied to like demons and sometimes tied to that because of like their species being interconnected. Some people feel in some way. So I have seen that. And then the unicorns I've seen as well because with Luciferianism, she is seen as the spectrum. So that's why I've seen the unicorn as well because they represent, like I said, like and Honey had pointed out earlier, it's that spectrum. But yes, like I said, I've seen her with them as well. Food and drink are going to be the apples, red wine, chocolate, and pomegranates. I find this one super interesting with the pomegranates because she actually is kind of friends with Persephone. So I feel like that one pops in. Other symbols that are, like I said, that are tied to her are going to be the owl. Owl is super big. That really pulls from the Judaism traditions and them naming her as a screeching owl. And then in Babylonian texts in Mesopotamia, that's how they describe her physically looking. So that's why that is also attached to her. The black moon, the apple, like I said, and the serpent. The biggest reason why the serpent is because there are stories where she is said to be the serpent in the Garden of Eden later that goes back to tempt Eve, and then also because the serpent is actually a symbol of rebirth, transformation, and feminine power. Like throughout many cultures in history, the serpent is tied to feminine power. And I think that's also wink wink why it's tied to evil, because patriarchy. And then she's also tied to the bat as well. That's another reason why she's tied to that, is because it's a connection to night, and then the transition and rebirth. Bats are all about transition and rebirth. Super misunderstood creatures as well. So I think that's a big reason why she's tied to that. There's different ways that you can represent her on your altar. I have it broken down in the study guide for you guys. I definitely take a look at it. There's different symbols depending on how you want to represent her. So if you want to represent her simply for like the fact of feminism, you're going to want to focus more on like presenting her as like the symbol of Venus with, the symbol of like the raised fist and like injustice and power, the triple moon, the snake and the wild rose. But if you want to like represent her darker side, you're going to want to focus more on her as like a succubus, more on her as like the torturer of men, as like a lot of stories say, the one like getting retribution, and then you represent her more as like the stealer of infants and like the eater of children. Personally, I would represent her in every single side of her that she is. I don't pick one or the other, like I have told you guys. And if you haven't I haven't taught with you before, my practice is all about duality and being in the gray, and how I view duality is like I literally live in both energies and I pull from everywhere and all sides. So I represent her in all ways, but if you choose to want to only represent her in one way, that is totally fine. I just broke it down to you in those separate ways in case that's how you wanted to do that. When it comes to ways to work with Lilith, I put a lot of different ways. I think my first list is 20 different ways that you can start to work with her. I'll kind of just run through the list, and then in the study guide, look through specifically how to do that. And then if you have questions, like please reach out to me. So one is embracing the moonlit path. What that means is you are embracing running your life based on the moon energies. You are making sure that you are honoring the moon with moon rituals and meditations of all of the moon phases, that you are recognizing the moon changes, and you are syncing up with the lunar cycle and tapping into intuition. This is a huge reason why Lilith is a massive deity for me, and why I use her a lot, because my magic is very based in moon energy. I love what the moon can do for you, and she's fabulous. So that's one way. Another way is invoking her as the Queen of Shadows. So that's typically literally just letting her be within your shadow, and you're in shadows with her. You're letting her guide you through your darkness. That is, some people invoke her as the Queen of Shadows when you use your moon blood in ritual. Yes, at times. The hard part is, though, since I've had my son, I don't bleed anymore, so I have to get mine from someone else right now, which is interesting, and I have to anoint it differently. But yes, when I did, yes, my son messed up my body. But invoking the Queen of Shadows, so that's just being willing to walk down that self-discovery path, being able to see your shadow side, making sure that you trust that she's going to walk you through your subconscious. Like, she will literally walk you through your subconscious. When it comes to creating your sacred space, personally for me, mine would not be as extensive as it is without her. She was the one that helped me build it up brick by brick. And by extensive, like I mean like my sacred space internally, like I am in an enchanted forest. I have my own fortress and castle. I know every single brick, I know every single detail of it, I know every single room, and she's helped me build that by walking me through my subconscious and helping me open doors I was completely unwilling to open. Yeah, honey, that was my assumption of moon blood too. That's what I assumed it was. That's why I answered it the way I did, because I assumed that's what it meant too. And then the next way is celebrating your wild feminine. So just being willing to embody your wild side. There's different ways to do that. Creating an altar specifically for her. You can add her to your altar, but she does kind of prefer to kind of have her own because she has been around so long and she is across so many different pantheons. I find that she likes to have her own space because that energetic container becomes so big it overwhelms other deities that are with her. But like I said, you can keep her on your altar. I personally just keep her separate for that reason. Dancing with fire and air, because she does encompass both of those elements. You can do that in a ritualistic way or even just in a fun way. And the next one is invoking Lilith in your dreams. I can't speak too much personally on that. If you've been in my other classes, you've heard me say it before. I don't have access to dreams. I simply don't dream. I never have my entire life. It's just not something I can do. So that's not something that I can help you guys with, but it is something that I have heard people do use her for. So I would just read that. That is something that I got from, that's information I have gotten from other teachers of mine. You can use her in divination and tarot. She can be pulled up for that. You can use her to try to confront your patriarchal conditioning. No, I do not think they're one and the same. Yes, I have. Tiggy, yes. And Tanya, no, I do not think they're one and the same. They are very separate entities, at least for me. For other people, when it comes to deities and dark goddesses, they see one dark goddess that just shows up as multi-faced, and those different faces are all of the same deity and the same entity. I don't subscribe to that, and it doesn't feel that way to me. To me, these deities are separate entities themselves. They have their own personalities, they have their own wants, they have their own desires, they have their own stories, they have their own traumas and history. And for me, I work very extensively with Persephone and Lilith, and they are completely different entities for me. Some people, like I said, it presents in a way to where it's one deity with multiple faces, but for me, it just doesn't feel that way. How do we balance it when sexual energies place out through the shadow? Can you expand that question? For some reason, I'm having a hard time. How do you balance it when sexual energy? I think it's the word place that's throwing me off. Are you saying like when your sexual energy like overpowers or is hiding in your shadow? Yes, go ahead.
Hi. So since this is totally the topic that I really, really need help with, okay, so prior to my ex that I had children with, I was pretty sexual, very sexual person. And the abusive relationship that I was in for 8 years put me in a different state completely. And almost like, when you're scrambling eggs and making an omelet, like it just, I'm recalibrating and redoing life, I guess. And now I'm in a space where I've been without him for about 3 years, and I don't even know what I feel anymore. Even in terms of being a sexual person, I haven't allowed myself to be that. So I'm kind of nervous about all of it, but I really, really want to go there, someday, soon. You know what I mean? I don't want to dry up kind of thing. But
I
so
don't
what's
mean
your
to laugh,
advice on that?
but that was just, I liked the way you phrased that.
No, I like to be funny. I'm sorry. Laugh, please.
Just like, so this is a super common thing. I have a lot of people tell me about this, and it's a big reason why they come to Lilith, is for this reason. So I want to validate that for you first and just let you know, like, so you don't feel alone on that either. I personally, like, I work at a women's domestic violence shelter. That's where my job is. So I do this for a living as well. And this is actually an issue that I actually help a lot of them with even afterwards. It's something that it's a very common thing. So I want to just validate that for you. So I'm gonna do, like I said, I'm doing a class on sex magic. It's done. It's settled. I don't care what anybody else has to say. If it offends other people, I'm doing it. But so the way I would first start with this and on this issue is first is shadow work. And doing that shadow work, what I would want you to do is I want you to go and be willing to meet yourself as you were in that relationship. I want you, rather than seeking your inner child, which a lot of people go and seek inner child, I want you to specifically seek and ask for that version of yourself to make themselves present to you in meditation. When you're doing that, I then want you to hold them in absolute love, trust, and acceptance. How you do that is you physically hug yourself. You physically comfort yourself while saying the words out loud to that version of yourself that is showing up at that time. I am here to provide to you whatever you did not receive at that time. I am a safe place for you to allow me to know what that is, and I'm going to give that to you. I love you, I trust you, and I'm here for you. And you sit in that comfort and holding that version of yourself and repeating that until you feel that emotion has subsided and you feel like a sense of peace and calm. Then you thank them for being there and you go back to them as many times as you need to until they let you know that they are ready for that next step of shadow work to start looking more into you and who you are. And then I can introduce you back to your sexual organs. Does that help? It makes sense?
Sorry, I couldn't get myself off mute. Yes, absolutely. And when you were talking, I was visualizing it as you were speaking, and it's like brought me to tears because that person was chaotic. And I felt like the past 3 years of me like healing, excuse me, I've been trying so hard not to look at her. Like, "Ugh, you're not that person anymore. You're strong. You got this. You've done so much for yourself." Yeah, thank you.
No, you're super welcome. It's really just, yes, I really want, like, really just work on holding her in love. Cause like, trust me, that's, you're not the only one that said that. And I've dealt that with myself. I went through a massive, complete breakdown 5 years ago, and it took me 5 years to get myself back. So I know what that feels like, and definitely just like really hold and sit in that. Like it is definitely natural to not want to look at her. So I want to validate that as well. Like that is super natural. And I want you to I want you to fight that. And I really, really, really want you to hold her in love. And
I
if you
sort of
can,
taken
ask
out
Lilith to
wrong.
be there with you. Where do you get more information for womb healing? Well, I will give you resources for that. I'm also going to be teaching a class on it. So I will give you more information on that as well. And then when my professor page goes up, I will have a ton of book resources and prompts on that, because womb healing, I think, is something that people don't talk about. It's super underrated. I don't think people know a lot about it, and they don't focus on the fact that we all have those womb wounds and mother wounds and all of that we need to take care of. So yes, I will definitely give you guys links to resources for that for sure. I have no problem doing that. Okay. So any other questions on this topic or comments or anything at all? Okay. So next I have on here is you can call Lilith for protection. You can use her to commune with nature. You can use her to engage in shadow work. You can do ritual magic with her. This is typically where I use her because I am a very ritual and ceremonial magic. What she can incorporate in sigils and how she can amplify your intentions and manifestations and spell jars is it is amazing. You can honor her through rituals and festivals. Samhain, which is going to be coming up, I will be tying her into our ritual that I'm doing. Other deities I'm going to focus on more, but you can celebrate her there. And then Beltane. And then mirror scrying. If you've never done mirror scrying, I am going to teach a class on that eventually in my magic basics, but she's amazing for mirror scrying because you get the ability to gaze into the veil. You get the ability to gaze into the night and the darkness and chaos. So that's another way that you can use her. Because she's tied to the element of air magic. A lot of people don't use air magic, but I love air magic for cleansing. Air magic is absolutely amazing for cleansing and using the winds and things like that. And she can be tied into that. Using the owl familiar on shamanic spirit guides and the shamanic journeys will help you be able to work with her and invoke her. And just clarification, shamanic journeys and spirits are different than shadow work. So shamanic journeys are different than shadow work. That is a different thing. So if you don't know how to shamanic journey, please don't try to do that on your own. Make sure that you have a guide with you. Those are very different than shadow work. Next is just making sure that you give her appropriate offerings. Sex magic, which I've touched on before. And then she also has a unique like group and spirits and familiars and things that you can use to attach to her, and they're called the Daughter of Lilith. They're a group that you can go to kind of get information about her. They're entities. You can use her, and I did for a little bit, but I like being on my own. So that's kind of why I'm not a part of that, but I did put that in there. And then obviously, like I always say, doing as much research as you possibly can on that deity, on that dark goddess. The more you learn, the more you know about them, the more you can come to respect them and give them that reverence. Is super, super important. So like I said, even though I have done years of research and I wrote out 44 pages of information for you here, I never think that I know enough, and I will always continue to keep researching her. So always just keep looking into who she is. And that's even just asking her, like literally sitting down and having a conversation with her. I love sitting in one of my specific rooms in my sacred space and having wine and chocolate with her and like literally just listening to her tell me the stories of her life. So literally just speaking to her and getting the information from her as well is a super great way to be able to connect to her. In the study guide, I have a very simple like 3-line incantation to be able to get her attention while using magic. For the most part, she's pretty easy to get the attention of if you are ready to meet her. So that's why I put a super simple one in there. And it's really simple as well because she's also known as a lady of knowledge and wisdom, which is why it's really easy to simply just ask her to show up to give you wisdom because that's one of her titles or epithets. Sigil work is super, super important when it comes to deities. It's a beginning point to be able to start to invoke or summon or channel or be a vessel for them. All 4 of those things are different things. I'm pretty sure I went over the difference of those in my first Dark Goddess class. But those are all 4 different types of practices, things you can do, but sigils are a great place to start with them. And pretty much it's really just being able to meditate on them directly. It makes you be able to energetically connect on them. It's a way to help you focus your meditation practice if you don't have the ability to focus on that quite yet. With that, I also have prayers in here and mantras for tantric practices with her. If you don't know what tantric is, that is a part of sex magic. It specifically works with your kundalini reiki and like your chakras, so it ties into that as well. It's like it's a whole practice. I do have information in the study guide for you guys on that. That is something that you can do with her. I'm not going to go through every single one. There's 28 different ones I put in there for you. If you have questions on that, always reach out to me. I never have a problem answering any of your private questions on that. I also have in here some summoning information on how you can summon her, how you can invoke her. Like I've talked about in my classes before, I would super, super, super prefer that you guys don't do any invocation or summoning until you have been in a relationship with this deity for an extensive period of time. You can always call on a deity. You can always call to have that archetype energy. You can always continue to develop that relationship, actually invoke, and to start to creating that summoning. I want you guys to have a much longer time frame with them because I want you to have the absolute utmost respect and reverence for them, and I want you to have that connection to them. But if you feel you are at the point to be able to invoke and summon, whenever you do, anything that I put in here, it's always a template. It's not dogma. It's not, this is how you have to do it. And I want to make the disclaimer, it is always going to be more powerful if you create that invocation and summoning on your own. So I put these templates out here so that you guys can have an idea of where to start and change it to what you want. You're always going to have much better results if you write them yourself and you change them to what was going to work for you. Because how Lilith represents to me may not be how she represents to you. How you need her to show up for you may not be how I need her to show up for me. So all of these are templates that I have in here for you. I do have one that's pretty universal that's in here for banishing self-hatred. If you guys are willing, I would highly recommend that you guys do that one this week. It's going to help build that foundation of self-love, that self-confidence, and help with that shadow work that you guys are all going to start doing with all these dark goddesses throughout the classes. So if that's something that you're willing to do, I highly recommend doing that this week. That would be like my one homework assignment really for you guys this week. Sorry, I'm new. Where can I find the uploads? For the classes videos will be on YouTube. They don't go up right away, but they do go up. When it comes to study guides, I do have them like in the chats what is exactly invoking? Invoking is literally, invoking is bringing the deity into your presence, and not necessarily physically. That's the difference between invoking and summoning. When it comes to summoning, like they're physically in your presence. Invoking is more energetically. And it is literally them coming to you, like literally in your presence. It's not just the energy, like it's literally like one-on-one contact. Whereas like channeling is them coming through you and speaking through you. And then as a vessel, they literally take over and encompass you. I have the ability for all four of them. Not everybody does. Most people cannot vessel. That's a very rare thing. Channeling is also very rare as well. If you work with deities, typically after a long time, most people can invoke and most people can summon. It takes a lot of time to physically have them appear to you. That's the difference between like invoking and simply just working with the deity and calling on an energy. Like you'll feel their energy there, they'll be there. The invoking is where you have that physical manifestation, like you have that physical manifestation with energy with them. Does that answer your question, Andrea?
Sure does. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry, what was the homework? Study guide, in the study guide, honey, there is a Lilith ritual to banish self-hatred. That would be the one thing for like homework I would really, really want you guys to try to do outside of shadow work prompts. Because I would love for you guys to also do any of the shadow work prompts in here that call to you. I'm not going to assign specific ones because everybody needs different things for shadow work. But any of those shadow prompts that will call to you, and then tomorrow your homework assignment also for Keratin next week will pop up. But for Lilith, I really, really want you guys to do those two things. Again, I have more prayers, summonings, and invocations in here. Tailor it to what you need. Those are just things I like to use or have used in the past. I have it on different topics. I have shadow work prompts for different things. I have it for your dark feminine. I have it for your female shadow. I have it for inner child, and I also have for sexual work in there as well. The last kind of like topic I want to touch on Lilith before I go into invoking her, because she's really pulling at me right now. I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm very hot and red because she's very pulling at me right now. So Lilith also shows up in astrology. I briefly touched this earlier. But this is another reason I think like she's so important and why we really need to know about her. There are very few bodies outside of the zodiac signs in astrology that actually affect our charts, actually have names and representations in our chart. Lilith is one of them. Lilith is actually part of our chart. She's in our chart. She matters. She affects our personality. She affects she affects who we are. So Lilith gives you the power you need to be you. That's really how she's represented like in your astrological chart. So whatever sign falls in your Lilith and in that Lilith in that house, like it's really that's the power that you need in order to be you. She's the ability for you to be able to think for yourself, to say what you need. She's really like your inner person, your own mind, your power for independence. She's literally like, she's that strongest version of yourself. And then when you look at her from like the astrological standpoint, like what she actually is, like it's a black moon. Like it's actually like, she's actually like a smaller moon. And it's when the orbit is the farthest from the earth. And it's like oscillating as well. So like it's this really interesting moment in astrology that's also happening. And it's in your natal chart, and that's why it resonates so strong with your personality because of the position it's in and the fact that it's also oscillating and moving. There are actually like 3 different types of them that you'll see in your astrological chart, and you'll also see when it comes to like even like when moons and phases and things like that, you'll sometimes see it represented as like the black moon Lilith or the dark moon Lilith. And it's tied to the Lilith asteroid. So this is like she's an asteroid, almost big enough to be a dwarf planet, but they just wouldn't give it to her. And she's super symbolic of how they found her, is like really symbolic to her story. When you can find how you can find her in your chart. If you don't know already where she is in your chart, astro.com will do it for you. That's like the number one that I use for making like free charts that most people use. But you can figure out where she actually is in your chart, and like she's, like I said, she's gonna really explain and show you like what you need to fully be you. Like that's your real answer to really stand in your power and be who you are, and where she is placed in your house. So in the study guide too, I do have my final musings on Lilith and who she is. I just if you want to read it, go for it. I won't go through it now because it's a lot, but mainly I love her. She's amazing. She's fantastic. She empowers so much. She can do so much for you. She brings so much healing. Like I said, personally, she's done so much for me with my sexual identity, my sexual desires, my ability to, like I said, I use sex magic all the time. I invoke her all the time. If you've been to Shentet's class, he uses her, and you actually go and you meet her during sigils, and you can use her for creating sigils. Like she's amazing. She's through so many places, and so many things. Like I said, there was a lot for her I had to go over. So if there are any questions right now, I will take them right now before I go ahead and I introduce her to you. I don't know how long of an introduction it's going to be because, like I said, she's been pulling on me for a very long time today. And I'm sure you guys are actually kind of feeling drained too if you're not used to her pull. But any questions on her? I'm gonna take that as a no. I think a lot of us here might need to hear. It sounds like that's in all of your personal stories, which is, I had a feeling there's a reason why she wanted to be taught so far up front in the line of the list of goddesses. I was not going to do her now. I was going to do her much further on because I wanted to introduce you guys to the goddesses you may not have heard about. I wanted that, but no, she was like, nope, absolutely not. Like, nope, 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 no. So I think you're very right. I think a lot of you do need to hear her and speak to her. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys a couple minutes. I'm gonna shut my camera off just for a second because I need to go and make sure that I am fully recentered to pull this energy in. I will be back in like 2 minutes and we will get going. So make sure you guys get centered, get in your sacred space, energetic container, whatever it is that you call it. Give me a few minutes. I'll be right back and then I will introduce you to her. Okay. I just had to get my other book of shadows. I have like 20 and I had the wrong one. So just make sure I had the right invocation that I wrote down. Here we go, guys. I hope you guys are ready and excited to meet her. Like I said, if you feel overwhelmed at any point, please just try to reground yourself, recenter yourself, take a drink of water if you feel dizzy at all, anything like that. If it gets to be too much, I won't be offended if you need to pop out and leave it all. So I call to you, dear Lilith, the emanation of eternal chaos, the ethereal blade of another world, a goddess that wears a black thin crown and occupies our minds like never before. She brings forth fire, she brings forth witch rituals, and she gives birth to the black binding dragon that beholds the night. Open yourself to the black desolation that's hung from her bones and the winds that come from her. Lilith, the resplendent goddess, the powerful mother, you who leads armies against our oppressors, your heart is emblazoned with an endless passion. No fear touches you, No cowardice is yours, and you stand unshaken with fire in your eyes. Your laughter shakes mountains, and your love brings your lovers to their knees. It is in your arms that I feel nothing but absolute safety and acceptance. Oh, my beautiful, glorious flame of passion, beautiful queen, mother of demons and vampires. With your unending lightning, may you be the blazing of my heart. May you be the first light that gives birth to my rebirth. You, who they took your halo and broke it, they clipped your wings so you couldn't fly, and they took everything from you to make you unhappy. They crushed it before your eyes, and they left you in complete darkness. But yet you rose, your halo becoming horns, dripping with their blood from your hands, and your heart is now broken and black. You swear for vengeance, but you create love to those who are innocent around you. You were broken and you became strong. You were dark and you brought forth the light. I call to you, dear goddess Lilith, to please be here with us, to please see us, to please be with us. I ask that you show yourself to those who need to hear you. I ask that you show yourself in whatever way they need you. Please allow them sexual freedom. Please allow them sexual identity. Please allow them independence. I ask for you in this next couple moments to please show yourself to them in any way that you feel necessary if they are ready. I call to you to sit in this reverence, in this sacred space. Okay. So you guys know she is here. She's very strong right now for you guys, and I want you guys to sit in a sacred space with her for a few minutes before I start to lead you through prompts and questions and start to let her image show up for you. Right now, I just want you to see if she's popping up for you, if you feel her energy around you. If her image is already there and she's there for you in person, please just greet her with reverence and respect and openness for whatever it is she has to show you, whether you want to see it or not. I want you to ask yourself what it is most that you'd like to see and hear from Lilith. Now I want you to ask her. I want you to be willing and open. I want you to be unafraid. I want you to feel the absolute freedom that comes with her and liberation. And I want you to ask her what it is, if anything, that she has to show or tell you. Is she showing up to you as the winged mother's demons? Is she showing up to you as she did in the first as she did as the first woman in the Garden of Eden? Is she showing up to you as the queen of succubi? Is she showing up to you as the winged Screech Owl? Feel her comforting energy, feel the warmth, feel the fire and the burning passion that just breathes off of her. It's in the most comforting and absolutely accepting way. You have to burn things down for regrowth. I want you to ask Lilith, is there anything in my sexual desires, sexual past that I need to overcome? Is there anything that you can show me? Is there a message that you have for me? I want you to ask her, are there any places in my life that I need to remove shackles to be completely free? I want you to ask her, are there any places in my life where I truly don't feel like I'm equal? And to please give you the strength to stand and fight for yourself and to have that voice. I want you to again look back at her. How is she showing up to you? Is she a winged demon with horns? Is she that naked, powerful, demanding equal parts wife of Adam in the Garden of Eden? Is she the mother of demons that's screaming and lamenting in the Red Sea for her children being killed and wreaking havoc for retribution? I want you to again ask her, are there any final messages today that you would like me to receive? Do you listen to those final messages? I want you to look at her and I want you to give her the utmost respect and reverence and thank her for what she's given to you today. Thank her for the messages, thank her for the images, thank her for the knowledge, thank her for the energy. Thank her for any revelation she's given you. Thank you for any emotions she's managed to bring up for you. Those emotions serve a function and they're there to let you know something's there for you to work on. I want you to ask her, if it serves you, please be willing to come and meet me again. Thank you, dear Lilith. I call you back. I thank you for being willing to show up for us here today. I thank you for the message that you've given to each and every soul within this circle. I thank you, great mother of demons. I thank you, great succubus. I thank you, the deity and goddess who just burns blazing past to tear down those things around her that no longer serve her or others. I thank you, goddess and deity, for pure independence and liberation, for pure healing and sexual freedom and identity. I thank you for being willing to be here with us. I release you. I call back all the guardians and gatekeepers of all the different directions. I call back the guardians and gatekeepers of the south, the east, the north, and the west. I call back all ascended masters. I call back all other dimensional beings, spirit guides, deities, and anybody else who is here with us for protection and guidance within this circle. I thank you for being here, and I ask for your willingness in future participation. Amen. Aho. So it is. Okay, everybody. I hope that was amazing for you. I hope that she showed up for you. If anybody's willing to share what you saw, if you saw anything, what you felt, what you experienced, if she had a message for you, you can feel free to go ahead now. You don't have to. A meeting with a deity is all your own. I don't expect to know what happened for you. That's all your own. But if you want to share it, you definitely can. She's still here, by the way. She's not going away. I have a feeling she's gonna be with me all week. But I felt her show up for a lot of you. So I really, really hope that this is what you needed. So if anybody has anything to share, any questions, anything at all, definitely go ahead. Let's see. We have Shalinda. When I asked her to be open to meeting with me again, she said, "Oh, yes, my dear, you will come to know me." I love that I could make that connection for you. I absolutely love that. That makes my heart so happy. I see her as a warrior, black sword, red hair, black horns, and a crown. She put a finger to the side of my head and said, "You cannot live in here. You must overcome the trauma. Make no doubt, he will burn for what he has done. Trouble not, it is sealed. His time is sooner than yours, but yours has not come yet. Rise and walk into battle." I had asked if she'd be back, and she says, "I've been with since the first darkness." And I absolutely love that. That is so beautiful, and I'm so, oh, this is exactly why I'm doing these classes. I am so, thank you for sharing that with me. I feel so honored that you're willing to share that with me. Thank you. Feel like she's still with me. Jody, I'm gonna agree with you on that. You were one that I felt she was right at you right away. I felt that pull immediately for me. I felt like she was very much with you. She was just an overwhelming light and then a dizzy spell. I can see that. She's a lot of energy. And Tanya, that doesn't mean that she's not willing to be there for you. It just means that you might need a little bit of work before she's completely ready to show up. But being dizzy as well, I can understand that is a lot of energy that comes at you. I like that image a lot. And then she looks like a Greek. Interesting. Super interesting. Like a pain in my head and then I cried. Oh, that's interesting. Victoria, do you still feel that way? She had a vampire energy. That makes a lot of sense because she is known as the mother of vampires. She's known as one of the first original female vampires. She's actually known to be, there are theories that she's the original over, why is that name leaving my tongue? I am so good with supernatural entities. Why is that name? Transylvania, you know what? I'm going to put it in the chat eventually. This is going to drive me nuts. But there's actually a lot of theories that she actually is the first vampire over him. He was the first one created. She's the first original. So it makes a lot of sense that she come through with that energy. Yes, a little very emotional. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Victoria, what I want you to do is I really want you when we're done, I want you to just do, if it's possible, please just try to do like a 10-minute grounding meditation on your own. After this to get just your own specific energy. I can still feel her around me. A big gust of wind came through the windows. Oh. I agree, Jody. Definitely meditate with her later. I 1000% agree with that. Dracula, yes, that's one name. There's also another that starts with V, Tigi, that I'm just completely forgetting. But yes, you're right. Yes. I don't know why that name is just, I was just teaching on one topic for 2 hours. So I'm gonna say that. I feel like she was here with me for a while, but my dogs were upset and things scared her away. When she left, I had very strange red hues around things in my house. That doesn't surprise me. Red is one of her colors, so it could be that her aura is still there in your home. If you want to keep it there, definitely. Otherwise, you can cleanse it out as well. I'm glad that you're comforted by your guide, though, and it's totally okay if she didn't come with you. You just may not be ready, and that's fine. That's totally fine. You can always try again. Yes, Vlad the Impaler. That's the name I'm looking for. Thank you. Jody, I know tears, some people really, really don't like tears, but tears are so good, and I'm so happy she's doing that for you. I with her during my time in my adolescence. When I was just about to have a complete breakdown after becoming too concerned with the approval of others, I could see that. Then begin to discover my true self. I am currently in a similar time of rediscovering, have been connecting with myself from that. Oh, I love that. Happy birthday! Yay, thank you so much for choosing to spend part of your birthday with me. I am super, super, super honored. And I am so happy that she showed up for you in that way. Thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm super honored you chose to do that. I could feel her, but I had a hard time communicating, even though I was certain she was there. Would you consider doing it? I can definitely do that. I'm literally here to do what you guys want. So if I need to do a class on that, I certainly can. Oh, I'm so happy, Jody. Oh, I'm so happy I can do that. Kiki, all my animals that came and sat near me. Yes, that is a very common thing when I invoke. My animals are always near me as well. It's a very common thing. I also work with the Fae a lot, and I use that through music and singing. Personally, like I have Fae in me, so that's part of it, and they do that too. Animals are super attuned to magical energy. Tiki, I saw her sifting into different looks. My physical experience was my heart was beating fast. I saw her wrap around. Oh, yes. Very comforting. I wasn't expecting all that. She is super comforting. I think that's something a lot of people don't expect. So I'm super glad you could experience that. My cat, yeah, my cat's literally. It's my, I'm gonna say mine. Like the second even music starts coming out of my mouth, like they're instant, they're there. Okay, honey, go ahead. I see your hand. Sometimes I miss it because of the chat and I get distracted by it.
Very good. I just didn't want to interrupt you talking or anyone else wanting to hop on. That's why I raised a hand. Right after you called her kind of to spread her around in the very beginning, she showed up and just like hung out on my bed as as we were here. Mostly making fun of me sometimes.
You can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like joking around with folks, so I like that energy. But um when the invoking started, she came and sat next to me and held my hand, which instead of heat, I actually felt cold from her. And then I met her during Shintat's class, so I'm familiar with the Moonlit Lounge, I think is the name of it. I can never say it right.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we just kind of like sat there. She showed up mostly human, but I asked her, does she have the wings? And she showed me the wings and the horns and looked really awesome.
I know, it's amazing. It's almost terrifying, but it's also like it's so, I don't know, it's so magnificent.
Exactly. And so we talked a little bit. Her ending message was, I need to not be scared of what I want, but also not neglect others, while at the same time not putting them over me.
That makes a lot of sense from her.
Yeah. And when I asked if she'll continue working with me, she said of course, and put her hand on my cheek and then petted my shield wolf. So, because instead of a normal bubble shield, I have two wolves I work with.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I use kitsune, so same kind of concept, just different for different people. So I love that though. I love the wolves.
Nice, thank you. I love the kitsune too.
Yes, I love
Awesome.
I have a very deep love for Shintoism in Japan, so
Yeah, I really want to one day, sorry, a little off topic. I really want to one day travel to Kyoto so I can actually like really get into visit all the different shrines, learn more of the religions there, Shinto, Buddhism, all of it.
it's literally my dream. It's literally my dream. But I've also warned my husband that like if I go to Japan, I'm probably never coming back. Like, I'm probably never coming back. So no, I totally agree. It's my dream too. I love it. Oh, I have a big wolf too. Oh, somebody else has a big wolf too. Yeah, Lunar has a big wolf like you too, honey. Yay, that's super cool.
Awesome.
That's super
Yeah.
cool. Yes. 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 You can say it sounds silly, but yes, that's a lot of the vibe that people will get from her. That's like if you want to pull up an image, like that's a very common image people can pull up. That makes perfect sense. I don't think it sounds silly. It makes perfect sense. See, you know what? That's interesting. Okay, super, super interesting. Then her hair caught on fire. I love that. Okay, I'm actually gonna ask her the next time that I personally start speaking to her if she's ever represented herself with white hair. So I mean, obviously we change our hair colors. If you guys really haven't seen much of it yet, but my hair turns to a different bright color like every 3 months. The last year, I think I've had like 7. So like it's totally possible. I'm gonna ask her because this is super intriguing, and I bet she would look gorgeous that way. Okay, I think she's been sending me signs for a while. Her correspondence were extremely eye-opening. She said it's always been me when you talked about her being the keeper. Ooh, I love that, Morgan. And I would really suggest representing her like that on your altar then. Like if you do altar work and if that's how you can represent her, definitely make sure that you represent her shadow aspect for that, for sure. Because yes, she She's definitely the keeper of secrets. She knows everything that you whisper into the night, even the things that you don't say out loud. She's getting her own altar. Yes, I think that's amazing. I absolutely love that. Like I said, like you can put her with other people, but I've just found that like since she has such a big energetic container because she's across so many pantheons and so many cultures, and like I said, she's been wandering the earth for 4,000 years, like her energy is just too much. I feel like it just overpowers other things. I've had candles break for other deities when she's on there. I've had crystals like completely shatter. I've had like moon water just disappear on one night because she's on that altar. So yes, I would definitely recommend giving her your own altar if you're going to work with her extensively, for sure. Okay, any other questions or stories or comments or anything else? Does she have a number association? Not that I'm aware of, to be honest. But I personally do everything with the number 3. That's a super sacred number for so many different reasons. But if you break it down to sacred geometry, like that's like the most sacred number that there is in many different ways. So I do everything in 3s. That's also an OCD thing for me as well. But I don't know of any number that's associated to her specifically. If you find out there is one, definitely let me know because I would love to know that. But that's not something I've come across. Okay, any other questions, comments, or anything else? Thank you guys for sticking out for like the little bit extra half an hour. I wanted to make sure, like I said, Lilith's a really big deity, and I didn't want to cut you guys short because I had to cancel last week because my whole family was sick. Okay, if there's no more questions or comments, thank you guys so much for being here with me. I super appreciate it. I love it. Again, like I'm super passionate. I just want to keep introducing you guys to these dark goddesses. If you do have any questions, just please feel free to reach out to me personally. And then like I have made announcements, I will have private apprenticeships and certifications starting soon. It's just going to take me a couple weeks to be able to write up exactly what I'm going to do for those. If you're interested, please just reach out to me personally. I won't be able to take on everybody at once because I do have a pretty busy schedule, but I will take on as many as I can and then have a wait list for you guys so I will know. Yes, I saw that. But yes, I thank you guys so much for being here with me. I don't think we have astral class tonight, but check out any of our classes that we have this week. And then my magic basics class is on Thursday, and we will be back here together next Sunday. Next Sunday, we are doing Keratin. Probably a goddess you don't know much about. I'm making sure that I touch as many pantheons as possible. So we are going to touch on her. Thank you guys so much. Have a good afternoon, a great rest of your day.